So we're going to get the program started with our first speaker. This is a man that if you've been here before, you have seen him, you've heard him, and you're aware of the deep, deep contributions he makes to the organization as a whole. Dr. Timothy Hernandez is the Chief Executive Officer of Ventura Family Clinics. He currently serves as the clinic's medical director and lead volunteer physician for our prenatal care program. We are blessed to have his knowledge, expertise, and leadership to lead this clinic forward. Please welcome Dr. Timothy Hernandez.
Lean in. Good evening. If you can't hear, raise your hand, please. I find as I get older, my voice gets a little softer, which is interesting because one of my day jobs is coaching a football. And as Matt Burke knows, because I coached him many, many years ago, my voice was quite loud then, and that was not an issue. So I apologize if you're not hearing well, but I'll do my best. So first of all, thank you all for coming this evening. The work here is incredible. The people here are incredible. And quite honestly, we just can't do it without the support from everyone in this community as well as other communities. So I have been volunteering, it's either in 2016 or 17, I'm trying to figure it out, but I've been at Options for Women's East since then. In addition to prenatal care, I deliver now all of the babies, with the exception of when I'm not available, and then my group kindly backs me up for that. And so it's been a tremendous pleasure to be involved in this organization and the work that it does. This afternoon, I was at a service for a family physician who died very suddenly earlier this year. And he's a little bit younger than me, and it just brought to my attention once again how frail life is, how we just can't pretend that we have control over things, and how important it is to live each day to our fullest. This man was a tremendous man, dedicated his life to service, and again, it shows one of the other cliches, which is life isn't fair. And it's so precious, and I think that's why the work here is so important. The folks that we serve, and it was so wonderful, sorry Jess, I'm going to call you out a little bit, it's so wonderful seeing some of the folks that we serve, some of the moms that we serve, some of the babies that we have a chance to deliver, because that's really not only what it's about, but it's so critical during this time. Because I'll tell you, this state is not an easy place to do this work in. There's so much polarization. There is so much cancel culture that to proudly say that you support life often gets you ostracized, marginalized, and it makes it really hard for those folks that are doing it, which is so interesting. Because really, our lives, our work is really dedicated at supporting life, supporting these moms, oftentimes in really critical times of their life. The narrative will continue to change, and it's going to be even more difficult, which is why not only do we need your support financially, but we also need your support politically, we need your support emotionally, we need your support in every way that we can. It's not going to be won through adversarial processes. I think Matt probably can share a little bit of, with his political aspirations, how difficult it is to change the culture, to go against the culture in a state like Minnesota. Yet there are many, many, many people who do support life and who do put their treasure, put their time, put their energies towards that. I want to make sure, because I'm going to keep this short and sweet, I want to make sure and thank a few people. I want to thank Jen and her staff. You know, as the dollars have been cut through legislation in this state, it's more and more difficult to have enough employees, to have folks doing that, and everybody is doing more and more. And she's done a great job keeping this boat afloat because there's a lot of bullets coming across the bow. I also want to make sure and thank the nurses that work there. They are tireless, they have tremendous energy, but most of all, they're so compassionate. They care so much about the folks there. So Sydney, Katie, Emily, I also saw Casey, who worked with us for a while. Thank you so much for everything that you do. You make it very, very easy, although I will admit Sydney sometimes texts me at 2 o'clock in the morning with her questions. But make it very easy to do this work. I want to make sure and thank Lori. Those ultrasounds, I mean, it's not only a wonderful service, it's really a critical, because we have so many of our moms that do not have insurance. And so we can't go through sort of the traditional sources that at least I do during my day job over at Entira. And our moms almost always are higher risk. They almost always need exceptional support and care. So to have folks like Lori and the nursing staff there, it's just a tremendous asset. I want to thank Matt for coming. I've known Matt a long, long, long time. I've known Matt's family. Comes from a tremendous family, grew up in the parish of Nativity. For all of those who you know St. Paul, you know that it's St. Small. We are intertwined, interwoven. Sometimes you could use the word incestuous in a positive way, but Matt was a young man when I coached him, and he's been a wonderful role model and a wonderful leader in this work. So thank you, Matt, for coming. And finally, I want to make sure and thank my wife. When I have to run off for a delivery, and don't come back all day or all night sometimes, it's not an easy existence. She's a wonderful person. She is the mother of our 7 kids, and I owe her a great deal of debt and gratitude. So I will quit there before I start to cry. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.
Doc, you're free to cry. This is not a no-cry zone. There's lots of great stories to be told here, and we're all here for the right reasons, so it's okay. And I've done it in past years, so I know. A couple of quick thoughts that Jen just gave me a note. The centerpieces in the middle of your tables are for sale for $30. So if you like one, make sure we know and take it home with you. So one thing I want to bring up something. Just we talked about this place being family, and a small world that it is. And I just want to relate one personal story. Last fall, I took a trek on the Camino de Santiago in western Spain, which was just a tremendous. Yeah. Go if you can go. It's wonderful. The last day, as I was walking into Santiago, there's a point west of the city called Mount Joy, where at that point it's the first time you see the cathedral in the distance. And as I was approaching it, and I was carrying a camera and a tripod because I was doing a documentary, and as I'm walking toward Mount Joy, I hear somebody huffing and puffing, and he grabs my shoulder. And I turned around, I said, yes, and he said, boy, you walk fast. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry. Can I help you? And he looks at me and he goes, I know you. And I said, I don't know. Who do you? How do you know me? I'm in Spain and I'm from Philadelphia. And he looks at me and he says, "My name is Mike Braun, and my wife and I saw you at the Options for Women East Gala a couple of years ago." And I said to them both, "God bless you, and I'll see you next year, won't I?" And here they are again. So the world is small, and I'm so thankful that I crossed paths with Mike and Debbie Braun. So you never know where you're going to meet somebody that can make a difference in others' lives. This is what we're doing tonight. So our next speaker is somebody you all know, or you would not be here. And I want to draw one parallel. Matt, our guest speaker, will tell you that it's a team, right, that makes things happen. You win or lose as a team. Success is achieved as a team, whether it's in sports, corporations, organizations of any kind. And I believe Jennifer Meyer would agree to that completely. Jennifer Meyer has been with Options for Women East for over 10 years now and has served as executive director for 7 years. She's the proud mother of 3 adult children, a fun-spirited granddaughter, and shares this all with her wonderful husband, Chris, who we've all been very lucky to get to know over the years. Together, they love to travel, spend time at the lake, and make memories with family and friends. You all know her. Give her a big hand. Please welcome Jennifer Meyer.
Okay, I want to make sure this doesn't go off the edge. It's freaking me out, so that would not be a good thing for the night. Okay. There we go. Can you guys hear me? I don't know about that back table. You're just not going to hear me anyway. So, yeah, I see you back there. That's the rowdy table. If you guys need to visit it, it's back in the corner. Okay, I want to say thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here. What a turnout. I am sorry. Yes. Applaud for that. I am sorry if you did not have a name badge. I will take that on. And I'm so glad we magically found you a place to sit. It looks like we did not have to play musical chairs, so yay for that. I have a question, because there's a lot of faces in the room I do not know, and I'm really excited about that. If you have never attended our gala before, raise your hand. Yeah! Okay, we're going to keep going. If you have never, we're not really playing that game. If you have never been to our clinic on the east side, raise your hand. Okay, well, there is a lot of opportunity there. So see me afterwards for a tour. Okay, so one more shout out. There is a man to my right. Raise your hand, John. His name is John Roach. If you don't know him, you need to go say hi before you leave tonight. John and Mary started this adventure. We're only here because of them. So on January 22nd, 1990, they had the inspiration to open up a place where women can go where they feel most vulnerable and they need hope in the hand of friendship. And that's all because of their vision. So fast forward to today, I'm going to give you a little history. If you don't know us, because there's a lot of new people in the room, maybe you need to know more. We have tried to meet the ever-changing needs of the community in the East Side and the women we serve. So from that to now, we offer pregnancy tests, limited ultrasounds that date the pregnancy, STI testing and treatment, pregnancy, parenting education, it's a long list. Full prenatal care, if you didn't understand that from Dr. Hernandez, and we're talking huge scope of prenatal care in our building. What we tell the patients is whatever happens in this building is no cost. Let that sink in for a minute. No cost. And non-medical postpartum, up to 3 years. That means a woman in the ultrasound seeing her heartbeat of the unborn child for the first time she's given the option to come back to that very room where she made relationship with that team for prenatal care. She gets to come back to the same room where she made the brave and courageous decision to carry this child. And she can come back to that room where she saw her child's life unfold before her. That's why the ultrasound room is our favorite room in the clinic. So if you take a tour, we start there. We spend a lot of time in there because someone's heart is going to be changed in that room. It may not always be mom, maybe father of baby, could be that person's mom, it could be cousin, sister, friend, anyone. But that's going to stay with them too. We don't always know what happens when they leave, but it's going to stay with them. If you haven't attended our gala before, you probably don't know my story. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then we'll get into some testimonials. I grew up in a small town in North Dakota, and I was the oldest of three. And as you are taught to be the oldest, you should be the example, the positive example for your younger siblings. Well, I did just that. I was a good student. I was involved in school activities. I was in band, choir, drama, speech. I was also a cheerleader. And that's where I met my husband, Wave Chris, in high school. I'll put him on the spot. He has something to do with this story. After high school, we went off to college to pursue our dreams. He chose chemistry. I chose psychology, completely opposite. During the middle of my sophomore year, we became pregnant. Now remember, I was the older child, and I was supposed to set the example. This was not part of my plan. This is where I was met with an incredible decision. And you know when you have too much information about something, and it's not always a good thing? Well, I knew exactly where the abortion clinic was because there was only one in the state of North Dakota. I'd prayed in front of it with my family. I was raised Catholic in a very pro-life family, and my values did not align with that. So it's one thing to get pregnant, and it's one thing to be against abortion when it's just a political stance or that little tick on the ballot box. It's another thing when your whole life is in front of you. I was just starting college. I had so many hopes and dreams, and this was not one of them. So this was my moment of decision. I knew where to get an abortion, and no one would have to know. No one would have to know. But right when I was waiting for my boyfriend to show up at my dorm, a friend who I had not seen in forever rang the door of my dormitory. Now, this is someone I had not seen in over 2 years. And this was way before social media, so I didn't know she was coming. I didn't even know where she was. Why was this person coming when I was trying to make the biggest decision of my life? Didn't she know what I was doing at that moment? Well, no, she didn't. But God did. He knew to place this person in my path at the exact time, at that exact place. I didn't understand then, but I do now. After she left, we had to confront that positive pregnancy test staring at us. And I knew in my heart I did not want an abortion, but what else was I supposed to do? I was too young. I didn't have a job that could take care of a child, and I did not want to tell my parents and disappoint them. Remember, I'm the oldest kid. I'm setting the example. But God also knew what he was doing when he placed my boyfriend in my life. I didn't realize this until much later in life, but he was truly the one who saved us. At that moment of decision, he looked at me and said, "We do not do this. We do not do this." And that was all I needed to know we'd be able to make it work. The next day, I visited a pregnancy center, though I had no idea what it was. Just like Options for Women East, I had someone listen to me without judgment and meet me right where I was. Trust me, I was not in a good place. But we talked, we came up with a plan and something to move forward. And that was exactly what I needed in that moment. Someone to be there for me, to let me be honest and raw and just in my painful, hurtful, confusing time. So thanks to all the people that God placed in my path, in my incredible family, we now have, like you heard, 3 adult children, 1 very feisty granddaughter, And Chris and I are very blessed to be advocates for women who find themselves in the same situation. This is why the work at Options for Women East is so important. We want to be the first stop for anyone in this situation. We want to sit with these women in that confusion. Now, I tell you my story so you understand why God has led me to this job at this clinic, right? This is not one of those things you tick on the box and go, when I grow up, I'm going to run a pregnancy center. Trust me, it's way too hard. No, you don't want to. No, I love it. From the moment I walked in the door, I was met with a presence of peace and this complete understanding that this was not the clinic I visited years ago, but it was just like it. It was full of caring and compassionate people who just wanted to serve and give truthful information, medically accurate information by licensed staff. I'm going to make that point because they're trying to get us on that. Now, we find ourselves in literally a fight for life. Here in this state of Minnesota, as we've been alluding to all night, we're being hit from all sides. We have a governor, a lieutenant governor, an attorney general, senators, representatives, all trying to pass bills that just a few years ago would have been crazy. But now they aren't. Last year was a year of change for Options East. We saw the PRO Act become law. Multiple groups try to push a narrative that women need and deserve to have the right to an abortion. This is the only health care women need. Anything else from this narrative is false and misleading. So we testified at the Capitol for a right to keep the Positive Alternative Grant, which was state funded. We were told our services were redundant by various county agencies, and we were no longer necessary. So our funding was pulled. Now, the ironic part of that story is that all those county agencies refer to us. That's right, to us. Yep, all of my friends are going, yes. Funny, right? We were slandered in an article by Minnesota Public Radio. There were people that testified that we provide misleading information and we do not protect our patients' data, that we are harming women by not providing abortions, and how dare we even serve a God that is mightier than all. The attacks were and are still coming from all sides. Just a few weeks ago, our building and sidewalk were littered with flyers adhered with glue warning women of the building, don't go in there. They don't give abortions. You will not get what you want. If you guys saw my email, you saw the patient who came in and told us that. She was more irate than I was. How dare they do that? You guys do so much good. Why would they do that to you? Just completely stunned. She said, you guys are the best. Yep. So while the other side is trying the best to disrupt our work, which they did the complete opposite, they're only fortifying our resolve to fight back. They're making us stronger and our patients even more vested in us. So I have some dear friends at the Capitol. I got a little bit of information from them, so I'm going to share it with you guys because I think we all need to be educated at this point, right? So here's some things you should be aware of right now. Did you know that Minnesota is one of the most extreme states in the country with removal of many significant health and safety precautions for women and girls seeking an abortion due to the PRO Act? Legislature is proposing a so-called Equal Rights Amendment that would enshrine these rights to abortion in the Minnesota Constitution by a ballot measure as early as 2024, but more likely in 26. It would be determined by the Minnesota voters. That's you guys. Mothers offering maternal support, has a lawsuit by local allies challenging a lawsuit brought by abortion advocacy groups that held notification statute unconstitutional. So it's unconstitutional for a parent to simply know that their daughter intends to get an abortion. Let that sink in for a minute. That 13-year-old can get an abortion with mom and dad not knowing, but can't take Tylenol at school, can't get her wisdom teeth out, can't do anything else. See where the crazy part comes in? Okay. Lastly, and all the things you should know, on the federal level, doctors and pro-life groups from across the country challenge the FDA's removal of health and safety standards for misoprostol. which we are praying that SCOTUS holds the FDA accountable because so many women are seeking the abortion drugs. Without these safeguards, women are left to go it alone. So here's the latest on from the state of Minnesota. This is fresh. Last week, they issued an investigation against a local pregnancy center, not us, for not keeping patients' data confidential. False. Their goal is to try anything to undermine our work and see what sticks. We knew something like this would be coming, but when it does, it detracts from all the good work we're trying to do. It's kind of their point. They want us to take our eye off the ball and stop serving women. They want us to close our doors and throw our hands up. They want us to take our values, our beliefs, and our God and leave. Well, guess what? We've been fighting this a long time, and we're not going to do that. We will not be silenced and put in the corner. We will keep serving women and providing them the best care with an amazing staff and volunteers who want to see these women thrive and succeed. This is what God has called us to do. What has God called you to do? Is it to serve the women by working with us? Volunteering? Is it a daily prayer for our patients and the safety of our clinic? Or is it giving generously tonight? Did you know it costs between $3,750 to $5,500 to serve one woman and her family from that initial pregnancy test to her final postpartum follow-up? On average, we serve 30 to 40 women in the program and deliver about 20 to 30 babies a year. We don't want to turn anyone away. The women in the prenatal program come to us because they lack insurance, primary care physician, family support, substance abuse, trauma, you name it. We also take referrals from surrounding pregnancy centers. Since we are the only pregnancy center clinic in the state of Minnesota providing this high level care of prenatal care. The only one. Yeah, thank you. That does deserve that. Our goal for this year is to serve as many women as possible, but we can only do that with your prayers and support. We need to add nursing hours, have a full-time receptionist at the front desk, expand our education program, and we always need those medical supplies. So I'll leave you with this. What difference do you want to make today? How can you change the life of a mother and a child? What's your part in making Options for Women East the first stop for seeking an abortion? Now, I'm not going to leave the stage because I have one more thing to do, but I want to thank you guys for that. We're going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about Jess. So we have a guest here. Dr. Hernandez already alluded. I'm going to put you on the spot again. I'm so sorry. I know she doesn't want to do this. Jessica, would you just stand up so they know who we're talking about? So, Jessica, Hayden, and Josh. I was in the office when Jessica came in to Options East. I remember her family and friends waiting in the lobby, and I thought, well, that's a little odd. There's a lot of people here. And they came to share her journey. And now, get me right, there was people that flew overnight, like red-eye, to get there for that morning appointment. That's how important it was to these people in her family. I mean, that is love. It was such a beautiful outpouring that, I mean, it sticks with you. This is a few years ago. Jessica is one of our abortion pill reversal successes. Now, if you don't know what that is, yeah, clap for that. There's 2 pills. I'll make it simple. 2 pills. You take one, there's still a chance. You take 2, there is no chance. Now, they will tell you, oh, that is not science. No. If you take that first pill, no, you have to complete the abortion. You will die. Well, they lie about everything. But No, that's not true. We have performed many of these. We have 2 success stories. Jessica is one of them, and I am so grateful that Jessica was completely willing to share her story. That is her on the screen, and Hayden. We'll show pictures in a little bit. So I am going to read her story in her own words. Having a crisis pregnancy and all that came with it was the most difficult situation I've ever gone through. I couldn't imagine moving forward with the pregnancy and forever living with a messy and broken situation. I didn't want to put a child through that either. Abortion felt like the only viable option. I went to an abortion clinic along with the child's dad, and I received the 2 pills needed for a medication abortion. I took the first pill hoping for instant relief, but instead I felt terror and an involuntary rejection of the medicine. My insides felt like they were on fire. Despite these reactions, I decided that I was going to take the second pill the next day to terminate the pregnancy. In the meantime, my 2 friends and sister came to my house to have conversations with me about other options and to pray with me. I also spoke with my mom and my therapist. Even with all the most important people in my life, in my network, encouraging me to move forward with the pregnancy, I was determined to end it and move forward with my life. Over time and conversations, I truly believe through the power of God, He changed my heart incredibly. I felt like I was in a pitch black room and the door opened slightly with a tiny sliver of golden light. My friend connected me with the abortion pill reversal hotline, and they set me up with an appointment at Options for Women East the next day. Walking into the Options lobby, I felt like I was in a fog, a haze. There were no kids dressed up for Halloween visiting the clinic, and I saw that there was a strong community bond with those they served. The child's dad and I met with Nurse Casey in the back room, where she simply asked, "Can you tell me who is that in the lobby?" I described my 2 friends, one who had brought her baby along with my sister. She helped me see that I have a strong support system. She explained their process and said they needed to find a heartbeat before moving forward. Sonographer Lori took an ultrasound and found a heartbeat. They prescribed extra progesterone and had us go in for weekly appointments. My friends who had planned pregnancies were jealous of all the ultrasounds that I received. The Options staff were amazing and helped me through every step of the way. They educated me, encouraged me, and let me express myself fully without pushing me to look on the bright side or feel something different than I was feeling. I took classes with Lori, and they gave me baskets of self-care items and baby items, which was such a blessing. Dr. Hernandez was incredibly kind and patient. I can attest to that. As I navigated the complicated feelings I had over the pregnancy, I was astounded by all the extra hours that the staff put in to help people like me for free of charge. I couldn't believe I didn't have to pay for appointments. Isn't that amazing? Not having the cost as a barrier was an enormous weight off my shoulders. The staff was so attentive and caring, checking in with texts throughout the week and being on call 24/7 for any issues I had, especially the closer I got to having birth. They even did multiple home visits during and after I gave birth. Dr. Hernandez was so understanding of my particular situation and made accommodations for me so I felt more comfortable. Throughout the pregnancy, I felt supported and heard. I gave birth to a baby girl named Hayden. I was able to bring Hayden to Options Clinic for the staff to meet her, which was very special. I had severe postpartum mental health issues, which Options helped me navigate as well. Dr. Hernandez told me, "You're stronger than you think you are," which really impacted me and gave me hope throughout the dark times. I can truly say without God, my support network, community resources, and Options for Women East, I don't think my daughter or I would be standing here today. Options helped me choose life for my baby as well for myself. A heartfelt thank you to Options staff and all those who support Options for saving me and my baby's life. Let's give her a round of applause. Again, I want to thank you, Jessica. That was very brave, Josh, Hayden. It's hard to tell your story. I asked her if she'd want to tell it, and she's like, not yet. So thank you for giving me the privilege for doing that. It's an honor. And thank you guys for listening. It's amazing that we get to do this for a job. And I'm sure Dr. Hernandez and my staff will tell you, like, we are just blessed. I mean, there's no other job I can think of that you get to change lives like that. It's pretty miraculous, and they become part of your family. So thank you. I'm just going to show a short video so you can see a few pictures of Hayden growing up.
With that little backpack on, she looks like she's ready to go to school. Soon enough, take my word for it. Thank you very much, Jen. Wonderful. It's now time to introduce our keynote speaker. One of the nice things about doing what I do is that I get to do a little digging and learn some things, and it doesn't take much to learn a little bit about Matt Burke. But one of the things I've always known, and you all probably know the same thing, that if you look at the people that you know the best, care about the most, spend the most time with, those kinds of things, there's normally a few common traits. One is that they come from good stock, right? Most people that we all love and care about come from good stock. Maybe you. I read an article that Matt Burke had written, and it's titled, "My Parents Made Me Into a Professional Athlete." And I'm one of 12 kids, so I know what my parents did to raise us. And I chatted with him briefly, and I told him these 4 things are what good parents do. 1, his parents said, go outside and play. 2, we don't care if you win or lose. Just give it your best shot. 3, homework first, sports second. And if you've seen him, you can kind of guess he was leaning the sports direction, probably. And the last one, and it's kind of like why you're all here tonight. His parents said, we'll be there. Because that's what good people do. Second thing I'll throw is this. In 2011, Matt was named NFL Man of the Year. Walter Payton's Man of the Year of the NFL. And some of the names that have won this award, I'm an old sportscaster, so I looked at the list, and it's a big list, but let me just give you a couple names, and this is the kind of company this gentleman keeps. Roger Staubach, Steve Largent, Dave Dworson, Junior Seau, Dan Marino, Troy Vincent, Drew Brees, and Matt Burke. Matt is so much more to this community than he intended to be, more than likely, growing up. He's a devout Catholic, husband and father, raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. He attended Nativity of Our Lord School and Parish, where he frequently served Mass as an altar boy. I found that's something we do have in common. Pretty much ends there. He's lapsed me after that. And after graduating from Cretin-Durham Hall Catholic High School, he went on to Harvard University, and after graduation to the NFL, where he played for both the Vikings, your beloved Vikings, and the Baltimore Ravens, where he won a Super Bowl. He and his wife, Adriana, along with their 8 children, are active in the pro-life movement. The family resides outside of St. Paul. Please join me in the pleasure of welcoming Matt Burke.
I never liked Eagles fans. But I'm rethinking it now. It's just great to be here. I woke up this morning in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, so it's good to be back on the right side of the river. I heard a few boos. Are there Packers fans here? There? Okay, wow. Well, I'll speak slowly. You're not... No big words, no math, I promise. Actually, quick, before I start, there was a tragedy in Green Bay, though. The library burned down, and what really made it tragic was most of those books hadn't been colored yet. All right, it's good to be here because what I look at this as is it's a celebration of all the great work that Options for Women East is doing. I mean, they are loving women and couples in their most vulnerable moments, in their greatest time of need, in difficult and unexpected and unplanned pregnancies. That's what they do, and that is awesome. It's also awesome because I know a lot of you have been involved in the pro-life movement for a long time, and the thing that, if you don't know, like the people that aren't involved, is it's so much fun. You meet the most amazing people at events like this. I got to meet John Roach earlier, and to hear his story, and for him to tell me that of all the things he's done in his life, that this is the most meaningful. Outside of his family, this is the most meaningful thing he's ever done. He said he started in a room 10 by 12 in the basement of Snyder drugstores. That's how it started. And this is where it's at today. And then, yes, to see Tim and Midge Hernandez, who I have known my whole life, who Tim not only yelled at me when I played football for him, but he yelled at me when I umpired his kids' baseball games. And I'm sure he yelled at me a bunch of other times, but I know Tim has been doing this. I didn't know Tim was the medical director here. So to see him and Midge here, it's just incredible. It's incredible, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here and to be involved in this movement. But we have to confront the brutal truth, is that there is a battle being fought right now, and there's a battle to fight. And part of me wishes I wasn't here. I wish I was at home with my family, spending time with them. If I wasn't here, if I wasn't in this battle, I'd probably be a lot more popular. I know I'd have a lot more money. I'd have probably been elected lieutenant governor. Actually, most days I'm glad I didn't get that job. I'm just going to be honest with you people. I know a lot of people have come up to me and said, I voted for you. I said, well, only once? Because if you only voted once, it's your fault. There is a part of me that wishes that I could just walk away. Life would be a lot easier if I did. But I can't. I can't because, number one, like you, I was made to do hard things. I wasn't made to shy away from battles. Like Pope Benedict said, the world offers you comfort. You were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. We were made to fight. You know, I'm a football player, right? I can't believe that article that I wrote said 4 things my parents did to make me a professional athlete. That was pretty generous of me because linemen aren't really athletes, okay? I mean, it's true. You know, it's not like you grow up hoping to be an offensive lineman, okay? You basically try everything else, and then you're like, well, I might as well try O-line. I guarantee there's no kids out there tonight that are going to get on their knees and say their prayers and say, Dear God, please make me an offensive lineman. That's a prayer that God has never heard. And you know, but when you play football, you learn to do tough things. It's a tough game, you know, and playing center is a tough position. When I played for the Vikings, it was great to come back to my hometown and play for the team that I grew up rooting for. And everybody like, oh my gosh, you're playing for the Vikings. That's awesome. And I'm like, do you know what a center does? Because I would go to work every day and I would bend over and a guy would put his hands underneath me. And that takes a little getting used to. And then there would be this guy, he was called the nose tackle, which is like the most inappropriately named position in all of sports because the nose tackle never makes any tackles. He's normally a 350-pound guy who he lines up like 3 inches from my face, and his sole job is to just destroy the center. Like that's, and I could smell his breath, and he'd always be fat and ugly and stupid. And I would do that like hundreds of times a day. And so, but that's what I was supposed to do. Like you, I can do hard things. We can do more than we think we can do. And secondly, like you, I feel like I've been called here. A few people asked me tonight, well, how did you get here, you know? And it's funny. I was at Guardian Angels Church a few months ago. I can't remember when. Might be a year ago. I don't know. And I met Jen, and she asked me, you know, would you come? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. But it actually goes back a lot further than that. When I was in Baltimore playing for the Ravens, because, you know, I wanted to win a Super Bowl, so I had to leave the Vikings. Oh, don't worry. We'll offend everybody before the night's over. But, you know, my wife had been involved in the pro-life movement. She's volunteering at, back then it was Highland Life Care Center and Wakota Life Center. And, you know, she was involved in volunteering, and I was just a supportive husband, meaning not doing anything. But I was busy trying to win a Super Bowl. So, and one day my phone rings, and it was the Archbishop of Baltimore. And he said, I got your number from your pastor, and we're doing a pro-life march down on the steps of the State House, and I'd like you to come speak. And normally when a priest asks me to do something, I say yes. But my policy is if a bishop asks, I have to say yes. So I was like, well, sure, thanks for asking. And then I hung up the phone, and I was kind of nervous because I had never, now this is 13 years ago maybe, which the world wasn't like what it is now, but it was going to be the first time that I was going to publicly, you know, witness to being pro-life. So I was wondering, well, what am I going to say? And so that day, it was a Monday, I went to Mass, which, you know, on a Monday wasn't really happening a lot back then. And I was like, all right, God, you gotta speak to me. You gotta give me the words that I'm gonna say tonight. And the gospel that day was the Gospel of Matthew, where he says, Jesus says, whatever you do for the least of my brothers and sisters, you do unto me. And I thought, oh my gosh, God is speaking to me. Because that's easy, right? I mean, the least are the unborn, right? So I was like, God just spoke to me. So drove down to Annapolis, and before the march, we had a mass, and Archbishop was the celebrant, and lo and behold, same gospel. It's a Catholic joke. And I thought the priest would laugh harder at that. And his homily was all about, the least of our brothers and sisters. That's the unborn. That's why we're here. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this guy just stole my stuff. What am I going to say now? I've got 3 minutes, So as we were marching from the cathedral to the State House, I was trying to figure out what am I going to say. And I was marching next to a woman, and I asked her, I just said, well, why are you here? And she said, well, I'm an abortion survivor. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And she said that when she was 16 years old, she had an abortion. And she deeply regretted it to that day. And she was marching because she didn't want other women to make the same mistake that she made. And I thought, oh my gosh. Like, again, not involved in the pro-life movement. I was just being pro-life. I wasn't doing anything pro-life. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, why am I speaking? Who cares what a football player has to say? You need to be heard. Well then, to my surprise, there were hundreds of women there that night who were abortion survivors. And that was a moment that changed me. I thought, it's not enough just to be pro-life. I have to do more pro-life. And so we did win the Super Bowl. Just want to slip that in there. And I retired, and then shortly after that, one day, an invitation showed up in the mail to the White House. And that was the first invitation I'd ever gotten to the White House. And it was inviting me, and the rest of my teammates too, to go to the White House. The problem was, a couple days before that arrived in the mail, then President Obama was the first sitting president to address Planned Parenthood in a speech. And at the end of his speech, he said, God bless Planned Parenthood. And, obviously abortion is legal. You can be for abortion, but you can't say, God bless Planned Parenthood. And so I just decided, talked it over with my wife, and I just said, I don't really want to go. I'll probably get invited back some other time. Probably do something else amazing, Boy, was I wrong. But I just checked the box, no, I will not attend, and that was it. So a few months later, I was at the gym working out, because that's what retired linemen do, trying to lose weight, and on the TV screens, it was, Ravens visit the White House, and I just saw it. I was like, oh, that's good, Guys, I saw my old teammates. It looked like they're having a good time. That's cool. And I got in my truck, and then my phone was just, like, blowing up, which, again, this is 10, 11 years ago. And it was all these sportscasters and sports writers from Baltimore, and they were calling me because I was the only guy that wasn't at the White House. Even guys that had been, traded and cut, I was the only guy that wasn't there. And, they kind of pressed me a little bit as to why I wasn't there. And I was just sort of, I was busy. And then I figured, even back then you couldn't really run and hide from anybody, but I had nothing to run and hide from. So I just told them. I told them the reason why I didn't go. And that's when I discovered the 24-hour news cycle. Because all of a sudden I was kind of in the middle of it. And I was doing like all these interviews. I went on Fox News, and it's like, oh, that went pretty well. Then I went on CNN, and I was like, well, that didn't go so well. And it was really the first time that I'd ever really experienced the spiritual battle that is going on here. I could feel it, that this really is good versus evil. And, since that day, a bunch of people have come up to me and asked me, well, why are you pro-life? I'm just kidding. Nobody's ever asked me why I'm pro-life. Has anybody really ever asked you why you're pro-life? Nobody asked. You know why? Because you don't have to explain it. Everybody starts out pro-life. Every 8-year-old in the world is pro-life. You can't explain abortion to them. They can't rationalize or reason that. Now, as we get older, right, God gave us the gift to reason, and we've been screwing that up forever, but as human beings. But you don't need to explain why you're pro-life. The other side, they're the ones that have some explaining to do. And they've done a good job of taking control of the language and their slogans that fit on bumper stickers. And the reason why they're on bumper stickers is because that's about as far as they can go. There's nothing else after that. They're just catchy little slogans. But it is it's always good to examine your position on I'll call it issues. I don't like calling this just an issue, but on issues. You're always open to the fact that you could be wrong, you could be mistaken. So, why am I pro-life? Why are you pro-life? Well, I'm probably like a lot of you. I believe in God, right? God is God, and we're not. There are times where I try to make myself God. My kids think I'm God. No, they do. They act like I don't exist until they need something. But if God is God, then he is the creator of all life, okay? Although, and that gets discounted in the public debate, shall we call it, if there is a debate going on. A debate like where both sides are actually heard. We always try to shout us down, but that gets discounted. Like, well, it's because you're a Christian. That's why you believe that. I will say I was at an event one time in Bismarck, North Dakota, and I was coming off the stage, and this older gentleman who he looked a little crazy, beelined right as I was coming off the stage. Everybody else was sitting down, and he beelined, and he comes up, and he puts his hand out, and I was balling up my hands because I didn't know what was going on. And he says, I'm an atheist, and even I know abortion is wrong. So it's not just us crazy. So yes, because of my faith, but it's faith and reason that inform my position, and I think it's yours too. So quickly, let's go through a few of the arguments, and we know what they are. We've heard them ad nauseum. The my body, my choice argument. Yes, you can do whatever you want with your body. You can do that. Except for vaccines. I try not to make that joke, but I just can't make. Your body, your choice. Yes. The baby's body is not your body. I don't know why this is so hard to understand, which it's not hard to understand, but it sounds good. But the baby's body is not the mother's body, right? We all know that. We all know that. I don't think in our society, and I'm oversimplifying and generalizing, but we say that, if a woman wants to have an abortion, then that's her right. I'm totally fine with that. If you saw a woman who was 9 months pregnant in a park, sitting on a bench, smoking a cigarette and drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels, you would not be okay with that. The pro-abortion crowd would not be okay with that. But for some reason, we've categorized they've categorized unborn children as property, and that women, and I'm not here to rail on women, men, men, we've screwed this up too. We would not have abortion if men would just step up and be men. But we've basically... We've basically categorized unborn children as property of the mother, and they get to determine whether their life has dignity and whether they get to live or die. Of course, you hear, well, it's legal. Just because something's legal does not make it right. We have changed laws throughout the history of this country. Slavery used to be legal, and we know that is wrong. And laws change all the time, and hopefully laws change in Minnesota in the near future. There's one of the situations that the pro-abortion side, and I say pro-abortion, not pro-choice, because if they were pro-choice people, if they really are pro-choice, should be here tonight. Is anybody pro-choice? Nobody? It's funny, I ask that every time, and not one hand has ever gone up. Because right now what the pro-choice side says is basically if you are unexpectedly pregnant, you can either have an abortion or you are sentenced to a life of single motherhood. That's essentially what they say. If they truly want women to have choices, they should be supporting places like Options for Women East. But one of the situations they always like to bring up is the incident of rape and incest, which obviously is a terrible, terrible situation, not easy on any level, and has a lot of layers to it. One, though, a child that is conceived during a rape, that still is the mother's child. Half of that child, the DNA is from the mother. Half is but half is still from the mother. Shortly after, did I mention I won the Super Bowl? Shortly after I won the Super Bowl, I was speaking at an event, and there was a lot of speakers. It was everyone was sort of lined up. It was kind of rapid fire, and there was a young man in front of me, 19, 20 years old, and I could tell he was really nervous. He was wringing his hands, and he was like sweating, and I was like, hey, dude, it's gonna be okay, man. Like, you'll be all right. And I was thinking to myself, like, he's not gonna be very good, like, I'm going right after him. Like, I'm going to crush this room. And I'm not perfect. And he got up there and he told his story. And he was adopted from Korea. And he had spent the last 2 years trying to track down his birth mother. And he had finally made contact with her. And he flew over to Korea. They were going to meet up. And he went to the meeting, and his mom didn't show. And afterwards, his birth mother emailed him and said she just couldn't see him, and she let him know that he was conceived during a rape. And at this point now, this young man is sobbing, and everybody else is sobbing, and I'm thinking, oh, they're not going to like me very much. But he said, all I want to do is hug my mom and thank her for choosing life for me. You want to talk about taking something horrific and turning it around? What an amazing thing. That woman has the strength and courage. She's a hero. And then something that never gets talked about. It's not just have the baby or have an abortion. We don't talk about adoption enough in our world. It's the third option. My family has twice been blessed by adoption. We were able to have 6 children biologically. Had 3 girls, and then we had 3 boys. Named the last one Brady. It's the Brady Bunch. Couldn't have any more kids. I was like, that's all right. I was like, this is great. I like symmetry. I was like, this is good. And we were kind of humming along, and little Brady was just getting out of diapers, and I was like, man, I kind of feel like we're finding a groove here, you know? And then my wife said, we talked about it a lot over the years, like someday, so, oh yeah, someday we'll open ourselves up for adoption. And then my wife says, well, what do you think? And I was like, oh, we're still on that? That wasn't on my heart, you know, but I was like, sure, you know. I mean, and deep down, I'll be honest, I was thinking there's no way any birth mom would pick us because, I mean, you got all these kids already, and I think, well, my kid's not going to get any attention there. So we went through the process, and we put our profile out there. And the first day that our profile was out there, 2 birth moms chose our family. What do you do? I mean, I don't mean that because our agent that was working with us is like, you know, we should have pulled your profile after the first one, but we didn't, and you know, you don't have to take both. And I was like, yeah, we do. I mean, it wasn't so. The first, our older son, his birth mother was it was really late in the pregnancy, and she already had 2 kids out of wedlock. This child was conceived during a one-night stand in Las Vegas. Didn't even know the father's last name. Didn't know who he was. Didn't know where he was from. And she was trying to figure out a way that she could keep this child, but she just couldn't figure it out. So it's like the 8th month, she decided to place him for adoption, and she chose us. And we had a phone call with her, and she said, you know, I just don't want people to think that I don't love this child. And when she said that, you know, I don't often say the right things, especially to women. But I said, actually what you're doing is the greatest act of love that I've ever witnessed. And there is a sentiment out there that thinks that, I've heard people say, I don't understand how a woman could place her child. They say, give her up for adoption. How could you not love that child? It's actually that's the greatest act of love that I've ever witnessed, because what a sacrifice. A child that you obviously love, like a mother loves a child, which is unlike any love out there. That you are willing to do that, to make that sacrifice for your child. It's amazing. And then our second son, totally different experience. The birth mother we talked to her one time during the whole pregnancy. She kept blowing us off. And the one time we did talk to her, she said that this was the 5th child that she's placing up for adoption. And you could tell she was rough. She'd had some rough things happen to her. And all of a sudden one day we get a call and it says, well, the baby's here. And we were like, the baby's here? We were supposed to get a call like when she was going into labor. And I was living in Florida at the time, and the baby was in Arizona. So just so you know, you can't buy a ticket online if the flight leaves in like 2 hours. So I sped to the airport with my wife. I mean, I was tunning it down the freeway, and I pulled right up to the curb and like whipped it into park and ran in the airport. And I was like, this woman needs to be on the plane to Arizona. And they were like, all right, calm down. I thought I was going to be like, the hero. And my wife got there, and when she had gotten to the hospital, the mother was gone. She had just left, and she left because there was a warrant out for her arrest, and she was a drug addict. My wife called me and said that the baby had tested positive for all sorts of stuff, and for about 10 seconds, I was just enraged, because if there's any other adoptive parents out there, I mean, that's your baby. That's your child from the second it's born, he or she is born, from maybe before that. And I thought to myself, how could she do that to my son? And after about 10 seconds, I just felt a great peace wash over me, because I'd realized that she was just doing the best that she could, and that she had given our family the greatest gift that anybody could give us. And I'm happy to report my son, he's he's wired up now, but he's very healthy and active. He'll be playing middle linebacker or probably doing some time in jail for. But here's the thing: when you talk about adoption, I've heard there are 1 million couples who are hoping and praying that they are selected by a birth mother to raise that child. 1 million. Could you imagine that the birth mother that I just talked about? She's made a lot of mistakes, had a rough life. I don't know where she is now, but she was an answer to our prayer. Could you imagine being an answer to somebody's prayer? What an amazing thing to be that kind of instrument, to be able to do that for somebody. It's a beautiful thing. So I guess at the end of the day, I mean, when you run through it logically, none of it makes sense. There's a lot of confusion out there, which we know who deals in confusion. The devil. The devil. This is not a political issue. This is not a social issue. This really is good versus evil. That's the battle that's being fought. Until we get this right as a world, we won't get anything right. We won't. This is the fundamental issue, to agree that every single person's life has dignity and every single person deserves to be born. So we know the world's a mess. We know our state's a mess. Two things. That positive alternative grant that went away, it was only, I think it was $3.5 million. I think the total of options didn't get $3.5 million. That was, right? Did you guys get $3.5 million? $3.5 million total for all the pregnancy centers in Minnesota to apply for. I think there's 80 of them, 80 some. They increased the budget by $17 billion this last session. Increased it by $17 billion, and they took away $3.5 million. Don't tell me you're pro-choice. That was done as political punishment, which is fine. The other thing, too, the abortion pill is extremely dangerous for a lot of reasons, but for one reason you might not know, which never gets talked about. The abortion pill empowers rapists and child rapists. Because if all they have to do is get a bunch of pills and give them their victims, they can go on. It's not good. The world's a mess, but you know what? History lesson. It's always been a mess. It has. And our church, my church, your church, wherever you go to church, has always raised up saints to combat the evil that's going on. Clergy, religious, and even lay people like most of us. That's always been the answer. This is exactly what we were made for. And what an opportunity. What an opportunity we have. I liked what Dr. Hernandez talked about earlier. You know, we don't remember often enough that we are going to die. You know, we get distracted on a lot of things, like, you know, the busyness of everyday life, and we really think the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl this year. You know, it's the hope that kills you, people. But it is the certainty of death that does illuminate life, that does make the now important. And I always like to share this beautiful quote from Henry Hyde. Henry Hyde was a eccentric Illinois senator back in the 80s and 90s. Democrat, actually, when they were sane. Just kidding. Not really. But he wrote the Hyde Amendment, which I think now has been repealed. But the Hyde Amendment they say, was responsible for probably saving over 2 million babies' lives, that piece of legislation. And he said this: when the time comes, as it surely will, when we face that awesome moment, the final judgment, I've often thought, as Fulton Sheen said, that it is a terrible moment of loneliness. You have no advocates. You are there alone, standing before God, and a terror will rip through your soul like nothing you can imagine. But I really think those in the pro-life movement will not be alone. I think there will be a chorus of voices that have never been heard in this world, but are heard beautifully and clearly in the next world. And they will plead for everyone who is in this movement. They will say to God, spare them because they loved us. If you love something, you fight for it. At the end, we'll be judged by the two great commandments: to love God and love our neighbor. It's not going to be how much money you made or how popular you were, or how many Super Bowls you won. The measure of a life is what and who you fought for. And the world is not changed by our opinions. It's changed by our work. And I know we are doing God's work here tonight. Now, I read this, so I'm going to assume it's true. Okay? This goes back a long ways. This was during the Civil War. And somebody from the media asked Abe Lincoln, he said, during the Civil War, when they were fighting to free the slaves, and they asked Abe Lincoln, they said, do you think that God is on your side? And allegedly, Abraham Lincoln answered, I'm not concerned if God is on our side. What I'm concerned about is whether we're on God's side. Right? It's not up to any of us to, it's not on us to win this battle, to change legislation, to do any of that, because none of us can. What we're called to do is try. God will use God wants our best effort. That's all he wants. We're just called to do our part. And God will keep doing his part. And I know for those that are involved in this, if you live this every day or every week or whatever, you know, there's a lot of dark days. Not every story is a win. And I get that. There are dark times, and there are some times when despair does tend to creep in. We're not a people of despair. We're a people of hope, and not Vikings hope. Real hope. This is a, see, there you go. This is exactly why we are here. And we will keep fighting until the end. Thank you very much.
Okay, what is God calling you to do? Tonight we have a very large God-sized goal of $150,000. I know, that sounds really big. What do you need $150,000 for? Well, Rich talked about it a little bit. But this is 25 prenatal patients for this year at $3,750. Nursing hours increased, half the receptionist salary, supplies for the prenatal program. What if we don't hit that goal? Well, then we serve less women. Guess what? We're not going to close our doors. My staff will say, I say this all the time, until they come and bar my doors and not let me back in, we're going to keep serving women. It might just get smaller, but we're going to keep doing it. And you're like, but hey, Jen, I'm not in that kind of place to help with that kind of money. You know what? That's okay. Consider that gift of $3,750 to support one prenatal patient. Or you can make it $7,500. I'm totally okay with that. It's not your budget, it's okay. Now, there's a white envelope on your table. Grab a table hose, pass it around. I want you guys to really carefully consider this. And that one-time gift, but in addition, you heard what Rich said, we have $10,000. It's just sitting there. We need the key to unlock it, and it only gets unlocked if we have new monthly donors or you increase your monthly donation. I want that $10,000. So I need your help to make that happen. New monthlies, increase your monthly. Yes, that's everybody in the room. So I covered you all, just thought I'd let you know that. We love our monthly donors, so please consider that. Help us unlock it. Okay, I want to thank you guys. You've been great. We have a closing prayer. Pass it around. Have a conversation. Pray about it. If you have questions, or you have other ways you want to give, come find me. Come find my board members. We will gladly help you give more or in a different way. You guys have been amazing. Rich is going to come up and take it from here, but I want to thank you guys so much, and have a good night.
Sarah, is it silent auction all closed out? Yep, we're good. So if you did bid on something and you're wondering, go on out there. They'll have it all figured out. There's still some bottles from the wine pool available. Your centerpieces are $30 each. They're beautiful. Take them, and you'll have something to remember the night by, as if you don't already have something. And by the way, that's what I'm going to remember about tonight right there. That was beautiful. And that is what we're about. That is what we're about. Thank you very much. So we're going to close the evening with the way we should always begin and end everything, and that is with a prayer. Pastor Steve Benson, not doctor. Pastor Steve Benson is the senior pastor of Eastern Heights Lutheran Church in St. Paul. He's been a pivotal partner of the clinic working with the area Lutheran churches. We love his dedication to helping us serve our patients and the community. Please welcome Pastor Steve Benson for our closing prayer.
Well, thanks to Dr. Erickson. Where are you? Father Erickson, for mentioning the Rockin' East Side, because my dear wife, this beautiful lady Stephanie, and I have been on the Rockin' East Side. We live just almost within the shadows of Options for Women, and we serve a urban mission called Eastern Heights and Open Arms. We're part of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and it is just a pleasure and a privilege to be here. We're working on some grants through the Missouri Synod, and we support this work 100%. Jesus once said, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." So as we wrap up tonight, I'm going to pray that God would make each one of us a little more like Taylor and Drew. Now, both Taylor and her husband, Drew, are nurses in the NICU unit at a Nebraska hospital. When little Ella was born there at just 23 weeks, she weighed only about 1 pound. Taylor and Drew, as nurses, were part of the team that cared for Ella for over 11 months. The first 3 or 4 months, she was very critical. When Ella and her birth mother was unable to continue as her parent, Taylor and Drew offered to become foster parents for Ella. She went home with Taylor and Drew, and the next year she was officially adopted, and today Ella is walking and talking and meeting developmental milestones, and she'll start preschool this fall in Nebraska. Taylor and Drew have learned a Jesus secret about having life and having it abundantly. I think we all could pray to be a little bit more like Taylor and Drew. We could all pray for a little bit more determination and hope and willingness to make a commitment. We begin our prayer, as we always do, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father in heaven, you sustain us every day. You bring us into this world. You draw our earthly lives to a close at the proper time. Your Son Jesus was born for us. He died for us. He rose for us. And He watches over and He rules our lives every day. May the pattern of determination, hope, and commitment shown in Taylor and Drew's lives show forth into our lives too. Especially we ask for your blessings upon Jennifer and her team and everyone connected with the life-saving work of Options for Women East. Through Christ our Lord, and all God's people say, Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be and abide with us all. Amen.
So follow those directions with regard to the envelopes, and we'll get those all together. My final comments for tonight. Again, raise your hands if this is the first time you've been to the gala. The rest of you, please applaud if you'd like them back here next year. And secondly, who has never been to the clinic? Raise your hands. I think there is a door open at Options for Women East for you to get a tour and see the wonderful work that they're doing and the magnificent contributions of every person in that staff. On behalf of Jen, the staff, and everyone else, the longtime supporters, and Matt, our wonderful guest speaker tonight, I'm honored to be here. I have been for the last 7 years. I'll be back next year if you'll have me. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your support, and have a wonderful, wonderful spring.